Hi there, and thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we're going to be looking at Lesson 7.0 Part 2, and this is going to be how to construct circle graphs. So just make sure that your notes are labeled, and today we're just going to be writing down 8 things. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing we want to make sure of is we know that a circle graph shows parts as a whole, and most of the time they are presented to us in percent form. We also know that circles have 360 degrees, so just make sure that you keep that in mind. Yesterday we learned about how to draw angles and measure them, so today we're going to be kind of putting those both together and making a circle graph depending on their degree measurement. So the first thing we want to know is how to make a circle graph. The first thing you're going to do is find the degree measurement, and that's just basically finding your percent of 360 degrees. So if you have 85% and you want to see how many degrees is it, what you're going to be needing to do is take 0.85 and multiplying it by 360 degrees. That's essentially what we're doing to find the degree measurement. If you did that really quickly on your calculator, 0.85 times 360 gives you 306 degrees, so that means 85% is represented by 306 degrees on your graph. Then once you have your degree measurements for all of your parts of the circle, you're going to draw the degree measurements on your circle graph with a protractor. Go ahead and take time now to pause the video if you haven't copied down these 2 steps yet, and once you're done, click play to see how it's done. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this information. This is just a simple survey of people's favorite sports. We have football at 30%, basketball at 25%, baseball 22%, tennis 8%, and other is 15%. What you're going to need to do first is just write down the sport and the percentage, and then go ahead and once you're done writing this down, click play so you can see what we do next. So what we're essentially doing is we're taking the 360 degrees in a circle, and we're going to find the degree measurements for each part. So first off, if we're starting with football, football is 30%, so you're basically finding 30% of 360 degrees. How we're going to do that is we're basically going to take each of these percentages, this will be number 3 in your notes, and multiply those percentages by 360. So why don't you go ahead and do that, pause the video now, and find each of the degree measurements. Once you're done, click play. So here are the degree measurements that I got. Football was 108 degrees, basketball is 90 degrees, baseball 79.2 degrees, tennis 28.8 degrees, and then other 54 degrees. Keep in mind, all of these degrees, when you added them up, are equivalent to 360 degrees. If they're not, then maybe you need to go back and tweak some, especially when you start getting some of these degree measurements that have more than just the tenths place. You might have to round up or round down just depending to make it equivalent to 360 degrees. So all of these here are just your information of how to do that. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking all these degree measurements, putting them together, and then at the very end we'll have all of our degree measurements, and we can represent that using our percentages. Normally it's easiest to maybe start with the largest one, and that's okay here because 108 degrees is pretty easy. We're actually going to do this together, but sometimes you might have a degree measurement that is larger than 180 degrees, so like something that would be representing more than 50%. And at that point, you would want to maybe start with a smaller one just because sometimes it's harder to do a larger degree measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do these. You're first just going to find the middle of your circle and draw your dot, which is your vertex and your ray. And then you're going to line up your protractor. My ray is not that good. Go me. I'm going to try to draw that a little bit better. Okay, the first one I'm going to do is 108 degrees, so over here at right before 110 will be my 108, so make a tick mark, move my protractor out of the way, and then connect the dot to the tick mark. Again, you can use your straight edge to help it look a little bit nicer, but this section will be football. And football, I believe, was at 30%. Okay, What happens next is you're going to need to rotate your protractor. It's going to look a little weird up here because you're not going to be able to see my screen rotate, but it's essentially what we're going to be doing here. So again, here's where I've rotated my protractor to line up on the line I just drew, and I'm going to do the basketball section, which would be 90 degrees, tick mark, pull it away, and connect. Oops. That might look a little awkward on your screen, but I essentially have rotated my screen to line up what was going on here. Okay, and you're going to keep doing that for each. So I've already rotated my screen again and found the degree measurements of 79 degrees for baseball. And right now I'm just making my tick mark. Baseball was 22%. Okay. And then just again lining up baseball or tennis here, 29 degrees. So that means the very last part should be equal to my 54 degrees. And tennis was 28%. So this final part should be my other at 15%. And I'm just going to check that real quick with my protractor, hoping that it's 54 degrees. Let's line up here. That's a little bit off, but not by too much. Okay, so you're essentially just applying each percentage as a degree measurement and doing your degrees right after another. This next one we're given is just this is your second example, and it's not giving you the percent value yet. So what you have to do is take these numbers and make them into percentage. So action, and this one you are copying in your notes. Just make sure you're copying as well. You have action will be 24 out of something, comedy will be 15 out of something, and science fiction will be 7 out of something. So you just have to add these numbers up. So we have 24 plus 15 plus 7 is 46, just double checking. So each of those will be out of 46. And you essentially just find your degree or your percentage from those. So 24 out of 46 is 0.521, so we'll just say about 52%. So what I've essentially done here is just changed each of my decimals, rounded them to the nearest percentage, the nearest whole percent. So action is 52%, sci-fi is 15%, and the comedy is 33%. Now that we have our percentages, we just need to find them in degree measurements. So remember, 52% will be 0.52 times 360. And that gives us a little bit more than 180, so this one will be probably beneficial to do at the end. Gives us 188.24 degrees. Comedy will be 0.33 times 360. And that's 118.8. I'm going to keep the decimals for now. And then sci-fi would be 0.15 times 360. And we get 54 degrees. So probably would be easiest starting off is just do the smallest one here. So you're going to find the middle of your circle, and I'm actually going to make the circle fit my protractor this time. Alright, so we've got the protractor set up, and we're going to go and get started here. Your ray should be in the middle. And then the first one we're going to draw is your 54 degrees. This one Someone smaller, we've got bigger degree measurements here. So 54 degrees, tick mark, and connect. So your sci-fi, 54 degrees, you're 15%. Next one, we're just going to rotate your paper to match the angle you just drew. And we'll have your comedy, which is 118.8 degrees. So 118.8 will be just before 120. Again, that one should look like a third of your circle, which means your action at 188.24 degrees should be your 52%. And notice it is a little bit bigger than your 180 degrees, and that's exactly what we need it at. Okay. So that's actually going to be the end of our video. So just make sure that you are converting your numbers into percent. We had to do that for this one. And then take your percentages, converting them to degrees. And then lastly, making those degree measurements as just several different angles put together on your circle graph. Thanks so much for tuning in.